Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. If you're joining us from the East Coast, I always like to say good afternoon. So we're happy to have you join us today. We're going to have a great webinar. As you can see, the title is Reclaiming Our Students, Addressing the Disappearance of Black Men in College. We have a wonderful speaker today, Dr. George Williams. It's always a pleasure to have him join us. He's a great presenter. Not only is he bringing information from a knowledge base, but he's also bringing information from experience. And just the way that he just kind of just gives us this information is just something that is just incredible, which you'll see here in just a minute. So we're very, very honored to have you again, Dr. Williams. It's always a pleasure. I'm going to give just a little more time for others to join us. Again, welcome. And if you would just put your name in the title of the institution that you are representing in the chat, we would greatly, greatly appreciate it. We want to know who's all here today. So don't be shy. Put your information in the chat. All right. The chat is locked. Thank you. Let us unlock that for you. We did that last time. Let's see here. Okay. Are you able to get in there now? No? Let's see here. You wouldn't know how to unlock the chat, would you, Dr. Williams? Let's see here.
I'm going to check and see. There may be.
Yeah.
Here. Let's see.
Okay. Let's see here.
Let's see. Try it now.
Okay. Try it now, Thomas, and see if you can get in. Yes. All right. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much. Welcome. So if you can put, thank you. Okay. And Thomas Paris from Jarvis Christian College. Thank you so very much. We also have others joining us from Houston Baptist University. Kaylin Charles, welcome. Hello, Mr. Houston from Houston-Tillotson University. We also have Diana Gossett from Texas College. Welcome. We also have, I think I just saw, let's see here. Yolanda Jones, Dr. Jones, welcome. Francisca Martinez from Concordia University. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hey, just a few more minutes. James Gray from Stillman College, welcome. We have another joining us from Jarvis Christian College, Devora, welcome. All right, it's about 5 after. We have Texas A&M International University. Thank you for joining us. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams serves as the Vice President for Student Affairs and Assistant Professor at Our Lady of the Lake University in San Antonio, Texas. Dr. Williams earned his bachelor's degree from the Bethune-Cookman University, master's degree from the University of South Florida, and a Doctor of Philosophy degree with distinction from the University of New Mexico. Dr. Williams has held positions as a special education teacher and academic student success manager by managing the academic accommodations of university students with disabilities. Dr. Williams also has presented and served as a guest lecturer at the state, regional, national, and international levels, addressing topics such as diversity, leadership, and cultural responsive teaching. So again, we welcome Dr. Williams, and without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Well, thank you so very much for this very special invitation. It's always good to reconnect with my peoples. I want to start with something that's dear to me. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the wind and the rain in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the little tiny baby in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got you and me, brother, in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got you and me, sister, in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got everybody here in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. You know, with the whole world in his hands, why do colleges across our country are having a male, particularly a Black male problem? Good morning to all of you, and thank you once again for this special invitation. And thank you all for joining this very timely webinar as we're talking about the plight of many of the issues related to Black men in college. And so I really appreciate this conversation for the next few minutes. You know, I love this story. I really do love this story. What began as a spiritual has really developed into one of America's best songs. Now it appears as a picture book, masterfully created by award-winning author Kadir Nelson. And so it's really a great honor to be able to read his text and the book itself. So, reclaiming our students, addressing the disappearance of Black men in college. This is what we'll be kind of talking through today. I want to also once again say a special thanks to my family at Trellis Company and Project Success. Thank you so much for the invitation and the opportunity to, again, to help serve and also really bring some conversation and light to this very critical topic. And then a special greetings. I was watching the chat. I see that some of my friends are here in Texas where it's a little scorching hot outside, but we will remain cool as possible, just like the other parts of the United States. So welcome, my Texas folks. It's good to see you all across the state of this beautiful state of Texas. And so really this presentation is structured around systemic challenges that are facing our Black men of color in our college settings today. What I'm about to share with you is not relevantly, really new, I should say, really new topics, right? There are so many different factors that we need to unpack and explore, but information that may not be new to you, right? But I'm hoping with today's conversation, the intent is to have a clarion call, right? To have that clarion call to make sure as leaders on our campus that we can better understand what we need to do to mitigate the challenges that exist amongst our Black men in colleges and enact on some meaningful efforts to overall support them. And so hopefully you'll hang out with me for the next few minutes as we kind of talk through and unpack this vital topic. I'm going to talk a little bit, first of all, about my experiences, which I'm calling from hood to hood. So we'll get into that in a moment. And then, of course, we got to have a few slides to talk to you about the trends. You know, what does the data suggest? What does it tell us with regards to the completion rates, specifically for our men and our men of color and our Black men? Then we'll talk a little bit about the impact of men of color when it comes to stop out. You know, it's one thing to get enrolled, but what about completion? And what does that look like for our men of color and Black men? So what are you going to do about it, right? So it's one thing that we sit for next few minutes to kind of engage in some authentic conversations about this topic. But now what? You know, now that you have the information, you're well informed on what needs to be done, what are you going to do, right? So what are you going to do about it? And then we'll end with some promising practices. I'm going to give you just some foundational opportunities for us to kind of talk through and look forward to kind of having those dialogues moving forward. So with that, from hood to hood. So yeah, this is me. This is me. You know, my mom got a little emotional when I shared this picture with her because, of course, on the left side is where I was there to graduate as a high school student. And I grew up in Miami-Dade from Florida, but my Miami-Dade wasn't full of palm trees and beaches and things like that. I truly grew up in the hood. I grew up in a space and an environment in Liberty City where, you know, I saw things that I really wasn't supposed to see as a kid, exposed to a variety of things that really impacted my life and still does for a very long time. Primarily, I grew up in a single parent household. My dad wasn't doing so well when he got back from the Vietnam. And so he had some substance issues and things like that going on. I also had some troubling years. Yeah, I wasn't always Dr. Williams, right? I was George. And so while being George, you know, I found myself living in that society in gangs and just doing things that I wasn't supposed to be doing as a kid. But when I got to high school, you know, I realized that the only place I can go to get out of and make a difference for myself was education. And so I took what was called, or still is called, the ASVAB. Many of you may know this. It's that military assessment that provides you opportunities to understand, you know, your interests and, you know, what that looks like for you as you are preparing yourself to graduate from high school. Well, the results of that assessment came back. I sat across the table from a trusted counselor who actually traveled from middle school to high school with me. And she shared the results with me in terms of that as I was preparing to finish up high school. And the results were, you know, you should consider driving a bus, right? Doing some service work. School bus driver, or, you know, just some service work, a custodian, and things like that. And so I left her office, you know, this trusted woman, thinking that that's what I'll be doing for the rest of my life is, you know, driving a bus and really focusing on, you know, trying to provide and survive in this world. But thank goodness I had a couple of cousins and that graduated from college and a couple of teachers that used some very choice words with me and said, you know, that's not what's going to be part of your agenda. And so I was able to be blessed to be a part of a space where I was able to really tap into some additional resources and support that was provided to me from my family, my extended family, as well as my family in school. And so I tell people all the time, education saved my life. You know, it allowed me to continue to grow. And now, you know, being hooded as a PhD is something that I would never forget And it goes back to those conversations I've had, in grade school, throughout my time, earning my bachelor's and master's and PhD as well. And so I came across a lot of mentorships, right? A lot of sponsorships. Y'all know the difference between the two. I also came a place where in my life where I wanted to make sure I gave back. And so this is my work now, my vocation now helps me to be able to do that, especially for men that look like me, and providing some opportunity and some really some direction, some light with regards to that. And so I've been blessed to be an educator. As an elementary school teacher, the best job I ever had in my life is to actually be part of the experiences, the growth, and facilitating learning for little Black and brown boys and girls at this one little elementary school in Tampa. And so I've enjoyed that journey. My dissertation topic was also focused on the experiences of African American or Black males students in the post-secondary setting with learning disabilities. I got sick and tired of hearing about the disproportionate number of African American Black males in special ed, that I really wanted to talk about what happens after they graduate from high school. And so I spent some years kind of following and did some case studies on several Black men with learning disabilities that were matriculating through college, and just really trying to understand their experiences. And so if you want to learn more about it, let me know and I can send you more details about that as well. So this topic is very much vital to our work and our studies together. Our colleagues are writing about it. The Chronicle recently published an article. The problem nobody's talking about. Men have trailed women in degree completion for decades. Why aren't colleges doing anything? There's another article about best colleges that talks about why is Black male enrollment in decline. And then St. John Scholars is really studying this information on this topic of stereotypes that threaten experiences of men of color persisting in community colleges. And then more recently, and back in 2021, actually, a loud and clear call to invest in men, Black men. And so our colleagues are talking about this issue, this crisis. And so we have to continue as campus leaders to be able to read, but also be able to study and make action with regards to this opportunities for our men of color and our Black men in college. And so, the data is very clear. We all know that in the post-secondary enrollment setting, we know that the last several years, we've seen a decline in enrollment across all categories, across all settings. Community colleges may have seen a little bit of push with regards to enrollment, but not much. We also are seeing the fact that post-secondary enrollment declined by 2.7% of students in the fall of 2021 for a 2-year decline of about 5.1% since the beginning of this dreaded pandemic, this COVID-19 pandemic. And so we also are seeing specifically undergraduate enrollment fell behind about 3.1% nationwide over the last year. And then you're also seeing some of that declining at community colleges. However, they were less severe, as I mentioned before, compared to other institutions of higher education. And so the message here is the fact that we're seeing a decline overall. And we know that. And we know that there are several factors that play a huge role in why we're seeing some of the decline happening. When we're looking at this overall college enrollment in terms of gender, I want to kind of spend some time a little bit talking about that. So let's talk about the overall trend regarding the number of students enrolled in post-secondary institution. But I also want to make sure we're focusing on now this notion of a gender gap that we're also seeing. And so the chart kind of helps display, some of the decline that we're also seeing overall with males, right? Regardless of what ethnicity you are, we're still seeing this overall decline in male students compared to female counterparts. And so, according to the Wall Street Journal, it was recently reported that last year, U.S. colleges enrolled 1.5 million fewer students than 5 years ago. And again, we know that there's so many different factors that play a huge role in what that looks like. But we also recognize that there is a gender inequality or on something as important as what these problems presents itself. And so we're seeing some of that in higher education. We're seeing some of that throughout the work that we do on our respective campuses. Now, as it relates to males, specifically with regards to race, there is a generation of young Black men that are abandoning college, right? College enrollment for Black men dropped 14.3% since the spring of 2021 compared to the spring of 2022. And so we're seeing this disappearance happening throughout our time and throughout the years, the last several years. And once again, there's so many factors that we'll get into in a moment, but there's so many factors that truly play a huge role in why we're seeing some of that decline happening. And as you can see, those dots that you see on your screen there really is a crisis, right? Because we're seeing those Black males not enrolling in things like that. So that's one thing about enrolling, right, in college, but we all know that persistence and degree completion are of paramount importance in today's competitive job market. The Black male college crisis is not just about enrollment, but it's also about completion. So we have to make sure, once you enroll in school, we want to make sure that you are persisting, specifically for our Black males in college. And so for decades, it has been known that Black men of color, are less likely to graduate from high school, less likely to enroll in college immediately, and less likely to finish and earn a degree. There's several studies about that. Now, I'm no fool. I know that we've been talking a few minutes about the data and the decline, and it's depressing all the way around. But I'm also know and recognize that this crisis shouldn't happen or we shouldn't address the crisis, I should say, at the college level. I recognize that if we wait until college to intervene, it's frankly too late. And so the pivotal moment is in adolescence, right? And the foundation is laid in the early grades, when I was in high school, even before I reached the high school level. So we also have to make sure we're starting partnerships with our local school districts to make sure that we're establishing these opportunities, particularly for our Black men, to be able to enter our college setting. And so let's not wait until they get to college. Let's help partner with other schools across your communities to be able to help address these declines and so much more. So I want to now kind of switch gears a little bit more and talk about the impact when it comes to men of color or Black men, in particular when it comes to stop out. And so this is one of our graduates recently, and really proud to say he's doing well, got his master's degree, finished his bachelor's here and got his master's degree. It's just, amazing way to continue the mentorship and continue the push and the motivation to make sure that this young man completes his degree. So very proud moment, right? I know all of you may have a picture like this in your phone, but it's always good to reflect on, the mentorship, the friendship, and the connections that we have with our students. It's about relationships. You all know that. It's about relationships. And so as we're talking about the impact of men of color and stop out, I have to tell you, and you know this already, race still plays a huge part in who gets ahead in this country. And that stratification is very evident in the post-secondary education setting. Without and while improvements in access to education have resulted in increases in enrollment of students, Black male students that is, in recent years, there's still this racial disparity when it comes to degree completion. And so it's still out there with regards to that. And so I'm going to just simply offer a few factors with regards to that. But we do know, before we do that, we do know when Black men stop out, particularly Black men stop out, their chances of actually coming back at or to higher education are probably slim to none, right? And so again, that's important to remember as students are not returning, right? They're stopping out for a variety of reasons. Let's go over a few factors. So environmental pressures, we all know that we have lost a generation of men of color, particularly Black men, to COVID, right? The COVID fatigue is happening, the mandates, the isolations, the quarantine, all of that, right? We're all sick of it all the way around, and it's impacting all of us. You know, this pandemic only highlights the unspoken truth that has created short-term solutions for these young men, but no long-term opportunities. You know, students will tell me, like this young man in this picture, we're more focused on money, you know, like getting that paycheck, you know, whereas if I go to college, I gotta pay for books and I'm in debt and things like that. And so it's really about survival and making sure that you're supporting the family. You know, Black men particularly face discrimination and obstacles that can inhibit their ability to enroll and then remain in college. The reasons for the enrollment decline and low numbers, in my opinion, are often historically systematic systems, if you will, rooted in a continued dehumanization and exclusion of men of color, Black men in particular, in America. So we have a lot of young men who are completely disengaged from our society because, quite frankly, they don't feel they're being valued, not as being Black, but simply as also as being men. You know, we heard the shootings across our country, you know, of Black civilians. We also seeing what results there are with regards to those shootings. The outrage has left several young men, Black men and Hispanic men, who are still in high school disenfranchised, almost to the point where they're feeling like they're invisible. And so the community, right, doesn't value who they are at the very time that they are developing their own identities. So there's immediate action that needs to take place as an immediate impact on their motivation to get further education. We need to make sure we're addressing and talking through these environmental pressures, right? Those things are important. The next is the academic culturally impact, right? And so my colleagues at the Manpower Demonstration Research Corporation will say that male students of color, particularly Black men now, bring strengths and assets to their college experience. They also bring broad, low levels of college preparedness, right? For example, some schools I know have extended summer programs or orientations that are designed to help cohort students acclimate to a college environment and to feel better prepared for the first start of the semester. And so we know that a lot of our schools, right, going back to the schools, focus more on the Black students' behavior versus focusing on their academics. That I was one of them where, you know, I had teachers really focus on my behavior versus, you know, my learning, right, my reading and writing and math. And so that did not help with my preparedness academically. The next is family relationship, right? The obligation to make sure I take care of the family. How do you go away to college? You know, one of my good friends would tell me before I went off to college, and leave the family, right? Leave the family struggling when you know that if you just work right now, right, you could help them right now in their everyday needs. And so it's that moment where you're feeling like I gotta go to make a difference, but I can't leave my hood behind, my culture behind. And so we as Black men grapple with that often, and just trying to understand and get a sense of not necessarily being apologetic about it, but knowing that there is a sense of familyhood. There's a sense of being able to make sure that you still establish support with the family. And then financial insecurity. Imagine going to college, yet living on the brink of financial disasters. Many students, Black men in particular, find themselves during their first semester trying to figure out how to begin understanding financial literacy, right? They don't necessarily teach us that in the high school, and sometimes you're lucky or blessed to have that at the house. And so being able to understand that there's other opportunities to help pay for tuition, understanding that you also have to make sure you have rent and food and other basic resources for you to survive. It really speaks to the opportunity for us to discuss onward mobility. The extent of racial disparities and economic mobility is so extreme in the United States that it's almost like two Americas. Individuals born into families at the bottom of the income distribution who get a college degree and have more upward mobility than those that don't. We know that as campus leaders, right? And so we have to make sure we are addressing some of those factors that are impacting stop out and really completion of a college degree for our Black men and men of color in particular. And so I'm going to take a break. I've been talking for a few minutes now. I want to give you an opportunity to use the chat. I see a couple of chats going on right now. I appreciate you, Dr. Jones, in the house as well. I love it. So tell me, how do men of color, particularly Black men, persist and earn their degree despite transition issues, race stereotypes, right? Academic unpreparedness and other negative forces. So what I'm asking is, what are the other factors, right? What are the other factors? I went over a few, but what are the other factors affecting Black men in college? Take a few minutes, just drop it in the chat. Would love to see what your reactions are so far so that we can, stay engaged. And don't be shy. It's okay. We're family. We're family, right, Teresa? We're family. So take a few minutes to do that.
Family history. It's a good one.
Definitely family history. Yeah. The generational opportunities, right, that are afforded to several of us. I talked about two cousins that gave me some of those choice words earlier when I went back to them and told them that I would just stay, after high school and drive a bus. And, of course, they had some words, but it was because they had experiences. They had gone to college. And so being able to understand, we got to do something to impact the trend, right? The trend that typically happens. So, any other comments that you see there?
Yes, let me read this one. It says, I feel that some of the other factors are the standards that Black men are held to compared to other races. They already have a stamp on their back as failure. And so even if they are qualified, they have to work 10 times harder. It's like they have to stay one step ahead at all times, even if they are qualified.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then, coupled with that is that imposter syndrome, right? Which is a totally another topic that we are also needing to address. But you're absolutely right. It's definitely having to work twice as much compared to your counterparts. Yeah.
We also have another comment that says perceived and lingering external responsibilities.
Yeah. It always bring us back to several stories. Bring me back to several stories where, I meet with male students all the time in my office, and kind of talk a little bit about their family and things like that, but it always go back to those external factors. It always go back to those external responsibilities. And then the environmental, right? The things that I talked about earlier, seeing that on the news every day, another shooting or another racist incident that's happening, and, it certainly triggers psychologically what happens within your scope. So we'll do one more.
Yeah, one more. This is a good one. Men of color need support, even when they do not know they need support. However, it is our responsibility to assess each student in each situation in order to give them the tools they need to succeed.
That's right.
They definitely need mentorship, but not the formalized mentorship, but mentorship in a way that you can have some real conversations, but give them tools and resources while assessing the student along the way.
That's right. That's a great comment. And it really is a great segue to the next slide here. I really want to introduce you to Rodney
Fagans Jr.
Yeah!
Maria Margarita Foss.
Why did he take those red shoes?
So this is me hugging Rodney.
Vanessa Garcia.
I love it because this was an opportunity for me to congratulate this young man on a job well done. And to my colleague that mentioned about the responsibility that we have as campus leaders, yes, we have a moral contract with our students. We have a moral responsibility to our students to make sure that we serve and support them once they put their presence on this campus, on your campus. And so Rodney was one of them. I knew that Rodney just needed some extra love. The mentorship looked a lot different with Rodney for a variety of reasons. It required me to use different ways to approach situations to get him to graduate. Rodney, by the way, I did get permission from Rodney to share the video and the story, but Rodney was one of those students that stopped out, and he was really close to graduation. He stopped out, he had family issues, there was a lot going on at the house, and he was just struggling overall, psychologically, just did not know what to do to help with the support and identify the support he needed for him to graduate. And so I would text Rodney and no response. And, a year went by and still I hadn't heard from Rodney. It was actually because of the resources, and we'll talk about this in a second, the resources that Project Success offers that allowed us to connect with Rodney again. And so we utilized the resources from Project Success, sent Rodney a text message and say, we know that you've been out of school for a year now. We want to make sure we reclaim you, right? We want to reclaim you in so many words. We want you back. And I was shocked that Rodney replied. And when Rodney replied, I realized when I saw the report that Rodney's name was on that list, I immediately made sure that we had mechanisms in place to get him to graduate. He was 6 hours away from graduation. He needed a Spanish class and something else, 6 hours away. But he needed the push. He needed that moral responsibility, that moral conversation, that moral mentorship to get him to finish. And it was because of the work that Project Success had allowed us to tap into in order for us to reconnect and reclaim Rodney at the time. Now he's this big time, teacher in Texas doing his thing, just understanding that, and we actually had lunch together last week. He was in town, so we were able to reconnect. But it takes a village, right? It takes a village to respond to him crossing the stage, which is where we want our students to be, right? Where we want our Black men to be and see more of in our college campuses. So what are you going to do about it, y'all? What are you going to do about it? So here are some key guidance to serve the underrepresented men of color. And they're all connected. All of them are connected to Black men. So these are just just some key areas that, I think we should really focus on. One is this idea of cultural responsibility and cultural responsiveness, right? We've heard those terms float around, but we have to be intentional about being able to utilize and take action, whether someone is or not, to address these areas. Our men of color, our Black men, they, like Rodney, they doubt themselves. They doubt themselves a little bit because their life and what they've been through and what they've been seen as, the images that we see on television, movies and things like that, they doubt themselves when they enter your buildings on the campus. So we need to help our men, our Black men, realize that they are more than what they seem to think they are and am at all times. We need to help them progressively become more confident with their abilities, not even as just a student, not even just as a student, but as a person, right? So we need to make sure we're addressing these cultural differences and making sure that we have and practice these cultural responsiveness through our work in our office spaces, in our classrooms, and throughout the time that those men of color, these Black men, are on your campuses. You see, also, they need to see the value of their investment. Everyone tells us to go to college, right? I've been told that since I was a young kid. I tell my two boys that same thing, right? You're going to college, you're doing this, you're doing that. Everyone knows college is a good thing, right? It's become ingrained in our society that most of us don't even question. We're going to college. That's what it is. You may wonder what you can do and what that looks like for you, but it is part of your culture, part of the culture. But sometimes, some people ask the question, right? Is college worth it, right? Is it worth all the work and the time and the papers and the expense with regards to that? And I'll say to them, a degree isn't just a piece of paper. It's not just a piece of paper. It's proof that you have earned the future you want. And so we have to continue to make sure that they see the value of what that investment looks like. Yes, it's a delayed gratification, but it's certainly a process that all of us know and know it well that will help us earn the future we want. I know that several of you out there may have already organized various initiatives targeting Black men, targeting men of color on your campuses. These have become fixtures in recent years at colleges and universities around our United States. So let me just simply say, let me affirm and encourage you to continue on this plight. It's very important, right, that we continue with that and being very strategic about it, but being able to be intentional about what we do as well. Black men need the sense of community, of belonging, and a space to build relationships. Rodney and I had established a relationship. That's one of the ways in which I am proud of to see him cross the stage. So we need to affirm their success. We need to affirm their success. There are qualities of many programs targeting men of color and Black men that have these wraparound approach services, such as or include social integration, exposure to campus life, mentorships, very intentional mentorships, mentoring on essential life skills, financial aid, and all have been proven to be successful. So I'm affirm that if you're doing it, continue to do it, enhance it, and utilize some of the resources that are provided through Project Success. High impact professional development. We all know that personalized student support services continue to be high impact practice for supporting all students, specifically for our Black men. So greater support and involvement on the part of faculty and staff in issues for Black men to help inform the learning community and the campus at large. We need to make sure that we're bringing in our faculty as part of these high impact professional development opportunities. Most instructional faculty, many of you know this, have no formal training when it comes to teaching students in general. As a result, educators typically teach by modeling the strategies and practices that they have seen in their classroom. What I'm trying to say is this: they teach how they were taught. And so we need to make sure we're providing some professional development. There's several studies out there that talks about how part-time faculty members, particularly those that are teaching at multiple institutions, have the lowest use of teaching practices such as collaborative learning, right? Performance monitoring, and intrusive practices. Sometimes you got to knock on Rodney's door and say, why haven't you come to class today? That type of thing. And so it has, as a result of that, it has been noted that there are disproportionate impact patterns that have adversely affected college men and college Black men in particular. So we need initiatives that are related to addressing faculty fear and discomfort around men of color, around Black men in the classroom. And then integrated equitable goals. We must remain rigorously engaged in promoting student equality, right? Maintain a student equity plan that examines groups and experiences that are disproportionately impacted. And so we all know that Black men transfer at lower rates than their other peers, right? We also want to know, what about our military population? Are we focusing on those areas? So we have to make sure that we're setting up some sort of a plan that talks about diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, right? All of those factors. Not only establishing those benchmarks that are associated with some interventions that are proven to be successful for completion. We also have to make sure that we advocate for these programs, these goals, these equitable goals that should be integrated into our university strategic plans. You all know that the strategic plan is the key resource of university initiatives. And then more importantly, there's some resources in terms of financial resources that should be associated with that plan as well. So I'm encouraging you to kind of talk through what those equitable goals look like for your campuses, and what that means to you to support Black men on your campuses. So, I was feeling some type of way, and Teresa heard me share this story before, because I've been partnered with Project Success and Trellis for a number of years now. And I got to meet other colleagues that were also tapping into the menu of services and support. And I was a little upset because I always thought, wait a minute, other people are doing this stuff too? I thought I was the only one that was really involved. I felt, really, really excited about that. But I'm willing to share them with y'all. I'm just saying, I'm willing to share them. But I have to tell you, Project Success programs and the menu of services really serves as an additional resource to respond to this crisis and much more, but certainly this crisis of degree completion. These professionals, Teresa, Dr. Jones, I see you on the line too. These are, professionals that know what to do and how to do it. And so if you haven't tapped into Trellis Company and Project Success in particular, you got to, right? You got to, especially being at a humble institution. Our Lady of the Lake is certainly a humble institution in the west side of San Antonio. Been here for 127 years. We can always continue to use the support. And so part of the menu of services, they have stop out initiatives where we provide individual approach through the support of the Project Success staff, this individualized support to make sure that we are navigating when students are ready to return, right? Reclaiming our students there. For the last 6 years now, I guess this is our fourth, well, actually twice we've done this, our student financial wellness survey that they provide. They do everything for you, right? And so this data that we collected from not only our undergrad, but our graduate students have lent itself to various things. Like we have a food pantry now that is established on our campus and provided donors to help us with that. We have a program that we have dedicated to our first time in college students Another donor has provided funding for that as well. We also have grants. We have a completion grant that we got from the state of Texas, two of them that allows us to make sure that we are reclaiming our students. And so it was because of the data that we use as part of Trellis's work, part of Project Success's work that we use through this financial wellness survey that we've implemented that allowed us to talk about the experiences and the voices of our students, how they're doing financially. Are they, we discovered so many different things about our students. The fact that several of our students were living in their vehicles. Some students were going from sofa to sofa, and so being able to really dissect and understand what our students are facing was powerful. As a person that serves on President's Council and my colleagues that help serve with me, we were all taken aback and paused by way of this data. So I encourage you to do that. And then, it's important for us to also stay engaged. Project Success helps us with that. Staying engaged with our students. When that pandemic hit us and hit us hard, we all had to, sometime in March, had to transition or pivot from a face-to-face format to online. And we had to do it quick, right? We actually had to do it. It was our spring break in which that happened to all of us. And so being able to transition to that virtual world was devastating for several students. The digital divide, some students that have laptops, some students that have Wi-Fi, a variety of things are happening. What Project Success helped us with is staying engaged with those students. We had to send them home, right? But it was also important for us to make sure we stay connected. And so through these text messaging that we do on a weekly basis, this interactive approach to getting information from our students, I'm a fan of their postcards. And so I love to make sure we're sending postcards to students, these call campaigns that help us organize. It's just a nice way for us to stay engaged with our students. And we didn't have the resources to do it. Again, humbling institution, we didn't have the resources to do it. Project Success helps us with that. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity. I want to just have some final thoughts, right? And I really do want you to snap a picture of this slide or do whatever. And of course, this information is also shared, I believe, on the Trellis website as well. So feel free to go back to it. But I want you to, as we're thinking about the conversations that we're having, there's no question about what to do next, right? There's no question about what to do next. It's essential as campus leaders to create something that is impactful, and of course, something that we are all as a community within your local areas, state and national, that we're all proud of. And that's reclaiming our male students, our Black male students to your campus. This crisis can bring about change. And, it's one thing that we're talking about it, but now it's up to you as campus leaders to do something about it. With the racial injustice that's happening, followed by the tragedies that are happening in our Black men and women, the murders across our communities, they truly underscore the inequalities that persist in our American society. So I need you to think about this equitable plan that I talked a little bit about earlier. This helps us to engage in ongoing sense-making at your campus level. So I'm asking you, right, what additional campus research do you need to conduct, right? Do you need to focus your attention on your men of color, your Black men that are athletes? We live in San Antonio, several of us, and we're Military USA here. So we're a yellow ribbon campus. Do we need to focus on the experiences of our military Black men and what that looks like as they're transitioning and that type of thing? Our residential Black men, right? Those that are not even part of a sport or SGA or anything like that. What are their experiences? So begin thinking about some additional research, working with your institutional research office to identify those things. As you're identifying the population, ask yourself, what type of direct student supports are available on your campus for this population of students, right? What are your outreach strategies? I gave you a few. You got to tap into Project Success if you haven't already. So think about this outreach, right? What that strategy looks like. What target student services would you use to engage Black men on your campus? We have a fabulous wellness center where we talk about health, We talk about counseling, which you don't talk enough about in the men culture, Black men culture enough, but make it normal, right? Normalize being able to go to seek the support you need for your mental health. So that's one service that we'd like to tap into. And then what professional development is necessary for greater support and involvement on the part of your faculty and your staff? In my opinion, that integrating these key components of a campus equity plan really helps us to institutionalize the goals that are necessary for this crisis, right? This critical strategy helps us to make sure that there are structural mechanisms that can advance success for college men of color, right? We have a national and a statewide focus on college access and completion. Many of you do too as well. Hopefully with these practices, they can help propel actualized onward social and economic mobility, right? For our men of color and particularly our Black men, their families, their communities as well. So it is this time, right, as the pandemic continues to exacerbate the effects of social and structural barriers, that we have to make sure we provide some commitment to this work, as campus leaders. And so I'm asking you to consider some of these questions and develop a proposal, right? A proposal that's drawn to these questions and then more. So finally, not everyone has to go to college. We know that. Faster and less costly career and technical education can lead to in-demand and well-paying jobs, trades and automation and other fields. However, graduates with bachelor's degrees still generally make more than people with lesser credentials. The pandemic has shown us this, right? The pandemic has shown that people without a college degree are more vulnerable to economic downturns. And so to this end, thank you. I hope that this was a conversation to help you stimulate increasing the college enrollment for men of color, Black men in your school setting. As I understand, is not an easy fix. It will require a multiple or a multi-dimensional and comprehensive approach. Getting to college is one of the key factors when it comes to social mobility, as I mentioned. In order for us to ensure all students have that equitable access to college education, we must acknowledge the need for target support for Black men. I thank you for this time, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Williams. As always, we knew that this was going to be a great presentation. This presentation is being recorded, so I will be sending this out to everyone. And to help get other students back, like Rodney, I do want to speak about our Stop Out initiative, which is Project Connect. So I'm going to bring in Dr. Nashawn Jones. She's one of our finalists here at Trellis. And so she's going to speak about Project Connect.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Williams, for the enlightenment of where we are and where our men of color, specifically Black males, are in your research and your experience of being a Black male, and then moving forward as a vice president of student affairs and where you are in making a change. We've had a great relationship with Our Lady of the Lake. These best practices do work. And so thank you for the partnership. But to all of those who are listening in today, I'm telling you, you need to take advantage of what Trellis has to offer. This is not a commercial. We're not trying to sell you on anything. But if you are really serious about being intentional in helping students return to campus, remember, Dr. Williams talked about we have an obligation. And we have an obligation when we take those students in. We said that we were going to help them graduate. And so this is a time when we can change where they're going. And so we have a program called Project Reconnect. What does that mean? That means connecting and engaging them and say, you know what? I don't care why you left, we want you back. And so we are here to help you bring some students back for the fall. Yes, I did say for the fall. And what that means is that if you are interested in your enrollment of re-engaging those students and reclaiming those students, I need you to contact your ISC within the next 30 minutes. Yes, the next 30 minutes. It is that imperative, and it is a sense of urgency that we get these students back. Now, what does that require? That will require that you send an email to your ISC saying you are interested in Project Reconnect. It is going to be a simple process. And what that looks like is that we will need you to say yes. Second, there is a form for you to complete, basically saying that I want to participate and get those signatures, but don't let that hold you up. The third thing is the data. Any students that do not have a hold on their account, that is low hanging fruit. For us to call, we are making live calls. No, it is not robot calls to tell them we want you back. Let's get you re-enrolled. We are also sending text messages out the next 2 weeks. I know you said, well, we're right here at the beginning. It does not matter. Students are making decisions and you are going to be a part of that solution. So if we can get that data, we will send you the campaign for you to approve and we will get this going immediately. So if you're interested, please connect. There are some more things that go with the Project Reconnect. So know that we will go about that and let you know what that is. Again, thank you, Teresa, for allowing me to share this with you. Again, Dr. Williams, you are amazing. And I just like to say, not as a plug, but if you are wanting some more information about reclaiming students, please know that Dr. Williams is available to talk about that on your campus. Just wanted to let you all know. I don't know if I'm speaking out too much, Dr. Williams, but I just want to let you all know that. Thank you, Teresa.
It takes a village. Thank you so much. I did drop my email in the chat, so feel free to connect with me. Thank you all. Thank you, Teresa, as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jones. Everyone have a great day, and I'll send this out. So thank you so much.